All right, so I am. I've decided I'm gonna go through the next chapter of my book because I have to. I have to get this out like as soon as possible. I was even like just thinking about it all night and then dreaming about it, and it's like it is being. It is being. The force is definitely behind me on getting this out because right now this information is the most important information to explain what is going on. And what is going on definitely, you know, has a lot of different aspects to it. But that's what I've been doing, since my awakening and my path to enlightenment is, learning about all the different aspects, like all the different hidden history and secret knowledge that's been kept from humanity to keep humanity at a certain level of consciousness, so that the masses agree upon a common consensus reality, and then they create that reality because that's one of the other secrets that they keep is that reality is intelligible, it is knowable, it actually is intelligent, it responds off of our thoughts, and thoughts become reality. And they don't, the government doesn't tell you that, even though they already know that. So that's actually what people are going to be mad about too, is they're going to be like, why weren't we told this? Why were we kept from this information? Why did they construct certain lies to actually build a knowledge base around materialism, which keeps people locked into a certain consciousness level, which actually keeps back the truth, which is idealism, or you could say ontological mathematical idealism, or scientific idealism and rationalism. And this is the knowledge that they've kept back and deliberately told lies to keep people from knowing about the nature of reality in their mind and how it's actually separate, but it actually interacts, and then forms a dual aspect monism, because the interaction between mind and matter has always been speculated by the greatest minds, scientific and religious and all that, and it's never been able to be unified. But the Illuminati have unified it. So we are the ones that see through the cracks of reality, that have been to the cathedral past the veil, that are the light in the darkness. So yeah, I'm gonna go through this though because this will initiate you, this will awaken you, this will open your eye, or your eyes. And if you just hear the voice, like I would actually like to go back and not know anything and then hear what I'm saying without knowing what I know. and then understand that I would know the truth when I heard it, which I obviously do. So, and the hardest thing to get past that I have found is materialism. Because that's how they've dumbed down consciousness through many different ways and been able to get people to accept a materialist paradigm of reality, which actually negates a whole another aspect of reality, which is the non-local, the immaterial, the dimensionless, the world outside of time and space, omega domain. And as opposed to this alpha domain, physical world, dimensional, and inside of time and space. And this explanation does follow Occam's razor because it is the easiest explanation. It's not complicated. It's easy. Unlike all the other scientific theories right now that are trying to get to the grand unified theory of everything, which are highly complex because they only acknowledge one domain of existence, which is the material world. So, in order to acknowledge the other domain of existence, you have to actually accept that mathematics is what reality is, that it's not a man-made abstraction, that it is ontological, and it is what explains reality. It is equations, and it's actually a self-solving equation. That's what the universe is. And they don't want you to know any of this. So, once you search for truth, some people go certain lengths, to find out about the politics and the religion and the conspiracy theories and all that, all the darkness. But like I have found few that have gotten all the way to the light, the light at the end of the tunnel, which are the Illuminati, which are the enlightened ones, because it is the truth, and they do definitely hold the secret Grail religion of illumination, which the Holy Grail definitely can be attained in the cathedral beyond the veil. I've definitely been there. I've experienced the music of the spheres. I've seen the equations all over the place, and definitely had my atonement with God. So this is the first chapter, In the Light and the Darkness. The cracks in reality. Because what does start to happen too is like it when you hit escape velocity, you're moving much faster than everyone else is. What they are saying, it does not matter, because you understand it's the same drudgery, monotonous matrix talk, same thing over and over again. Nothing new is being talked about, and that's what you don't want to acknowledge at all. You're past that. You're done with that. You're done with the hello, good morning. You're done with the Bobby May and Billy Sue doing the. It's like, what the fuck is going on? Is what we should really be talking about. And that's the Great Awakening. So, the cracks in reality. Every awakening begins with discomfort. The strange and persistent feeling that something about reality is fundamentally wrong. Most people experience this sensation briefly during childhood. They stare at the sky too long. They suddenly become aware that they exist. They feel the uncanny silence behind the world. They ask impossible questions their parents cannot answer. Then the machinery of society closes around them. School, television, religion, politics, careers, money, entertainment, identity. The endless repetition of ordinary life. Eventually, the questions disappear beneath routine, and the child who once stared into the abyss becomes another functioning component within civilization's vast sleepwalking machine. But some people never fully lose the feeling. The questions continue haunting them like ghosts moving behind the visible world. I was one of those people. Even as a child, reality felt strangely artificial to me. I could never completely immerse myself in the ordinary world the others seemed to be able to do. People around me appeared deeply absorbed in games I could not understand. Social status, popularity, trends, careers, appearances, celebrity worship, endless consumption, religious rituals, political tribalism. Everyone behaved as though these things were unquestionably meaningful. Yet something inside me remained detached, observing, questioning, watching. It was not arrogance, it was dissonance. I could not understand why humanity seemed so hypnotized by surfaces while ignoring the deeper mystery surrounding existence itself. Why were people obsessed with temporary things while ignoring facts. They were conscious beings living inside a universe that nobody truly understood. How could people spend entire lifetimes chasing money without asking what existence itself actually is? Why did humanity fear silence so much? Why were people terrified of being alone with their own thoughts? Why did dreams feel more real than waking life sometimes? Why did certain memories feel eternal? Why did synchronicities occur? Why did symbols seem alive? Why did mathematics describe reality so perfectly? The older I became, the stronger the sensation grew that civilization itself was built upon distraction. The world seemed designed to keep consciousness trapped at the surface level of existence. Everything competed for attention. Everything demanded emotional reaction. Everything encouraged externalization. Almost nothing encouraged genuine contemplation. And yet, beneath the noise, strange cracks occasionally appeared. Moments where the structure of reality seemed to flicker. I experienced them in dreams first. Dreams unlike ordinary dreams. Dreams that felt hyper-real. Ancient cities, infinite libraries, endless corridors, cathedrals larger than mountains, worlds illuminated by impossible light. Figures that seemed less like dream characters and more like intelligences. Sometimes I would awaken with the overwhelming sensation that I had returned from somewhere rather than simply imagine something. As though consciousness itself traveled. As though the mind was not confined to the body. As though sleep was not unconscious, but transition. Then came the synchronicities, the impossible coincidences, ideas appearing externally moments after thinking them internally. Symbols repeating across unrelated domains, books arriving at exactly the right time, people appearing with uncanny precision, moments where reality itself seemed to respond to thought. At first, I dismissed these experiences. Then they became too consistent to ignore. The world began feeling less like dead matter and more like a living process, a symbolic process, an intelligent process. The realization marked the first major crack in my understanding of reality. The second came through philosophy, when I encountered thinkers like Plato, Pythagoras, Plotinus, Nietzsche, Jung, Schopenhauer, and Descartes. I experienced something I had rarely felt before: recognition. It felt as though fragments of an ancient puzzle were scattered across history, hidden with metaphysics, mathematics, mythology, psychology, and mystical traditions. The ancients did not appear primitive to me. They appeared forgotten. Modern civilizations prides itself on technological sophistication, yet spiritually and philosophically, it often feels profoundly impoverished. Humanity can manipulate atoms, map genomes, and build artificial intelligence, yet still remains incapable of answering the most fundamental question. What is consciousness? What is existence? Why is there something rather than nothing? What is the self? What is death? What is reality? Science describes mechanisms with extraordinary precision, but description is not explanation. To describe how matter behaves does not explain why matter exists. To map neural correlates does not explain consciousness itself. To measure the universe does not explain why mathematics governs the universe so perfectly. The deeper I explored these questions, the more unstable materialism became. The modern worldview claims reality is fundamentally composed of matter, but matter itself increasingly dissolved under examination. Atoms became probabilities, particles became wave functions, solid objects became energetic fields, time became relative, space became curved, observation appeared strangely connected to physical outcomes. And consciousness, the very thing through which all experience occurs, remained unexplained. Materialism slowly began collapsing under the weight of its own assumptions. The old worldview no longer appeared complete, but neither did religion. Traditional religions preserved profound symbolic truths, yet buried them beneath mythology, dogma, literalism, fear, guilt, and obedience structures. Their cosmologies often reflected ancient worldviews and capable of integrating modern scientific understanding. Yet hidden within those traditions were echoes of something deeper. Mystery schools, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, Neoplatonism, Pythagorean mathematics, esoteric Christianity, Kabbalah, Eastern metaphysics, initiatory systems. Again and again, the same pattern emerged. Reality is not what it appears to be. Consciousness is fundamental. The visible world is only part of existence. Human beings exist in a state of sleep. Awakening transforms perception, and somewhere beyond ordinary reality exists a higher order of being. At this point, two worlds began forming inside of me: the ordinary world and the extraordinary world. The ordinary world consisted of survival, routine, distraction, social performance, and consensus reality. The extraordinary world was different. It was the domain of philosophy, dreams, symbolism, initiation, mystery, transcendence, imagination, mathematics, altered states, revelation, and ontological inquiry. Most people occasionally visit the extraordinary world through entertainment, movies, music, religion, fantasy, conspiracy theories, celebrity worship, sports, and mythology. But they do not remain there consciously. They consume fragments of transcendence before returning to ordinary life. I wanted to understand the structure of the extraordinary world itself, why humanity was drawn toward it, why myths possessed such power, why symbols affected consciousness, why dreams felt sacred, why the heroic journey resonated universally across cultures, why the search for hidden truth seemed embedded into human psychology and self, and most importantly, why reality appeared structured in a way that constantly pushed consciousness toward awakening. The deeper I traveled into these questions, the more I realized something extraordinary. The human being is not merely a biological organism struggling for its survival. The human being is an ontological seeker, a creature driven toward meaning, transcendence, and ultimate understanding. Beneath civilization's distraction exists a deeper impulse, the desire to awaken. The realization changed the direction of my life completely. I no longer viewed philosophy as abstract intellectual entertainment. It became initiation, a map, a weapon against illusion, a method for piercing through the surface of reality itself. And somewhere within that search, between dreams, mathematics, mythology, consciousness, and the strange architecture of existence, the first outlines of a greater vision began emerging. A vision suggesting that mind and matter were not separate, that reality itself behaved like a dream, that consciousness was not inside the universe, but that the universe itself exists inside of consciousness. That crack in reality had opened, and once seen, it could never again be closed. So, I mean, that is definitely should definitely that should definitely give you a taste of the red pill, because once you get past school, television, religion, politics, careers, money, entertainment, identity, and then all see that it's just a constructed thing for you to fall into a system that's made to control you and control your consciousness and keep people in a certain consciousness where they think like inside of time, which is Chronos, and instead of Kairos, which is outside of time, which is definitely the realm that I am operating in, have done the great work. and having attained the knowledge. And because I'm definitely on the outside looking in, like at all the people that are trapped in time. And you know, there was an episode, you know, on Netflix. What was that show called? It was the one, Inside Job. And you know, they had this episode where they had to go to this place where they had a whole town thinking that it was like the year 1984. And so they were all dressed up in 80s gear, while, you know, the rest of the outside world obviously was just in a whole nother reality and time, which is exactly what we're awakening to, because today in 2026. Like the Anut Koptis, which is the great year, which actually was what the Freemasons and stuff go by, is 4,000 years ahead of where we're at. So imagine it being the year 6026. Just imagine what that would look like. Because there's about to be a quantum leap into that understanding. Oh. So... Oh yeah, that was chapter 1, the cracks in reality, and you know, the next chapter is called the extraordinary world, and I'll get into that the next time, but that's enough for now.